All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections. The voter registration, the date is August 13th. Time is 4:31 p.m. We're at 120 West Doherty Street. First item on the agenda is to adopt. Chair entertains a motion to adopt.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
Pharaoh, second. Mr. Shirley, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is adopted.
It's very hard for us to hear. I'm so sorry. It's very hard for us to hear.
The next item on the agenda are the approval of minutes. You have two sets of minutes in front of you, July 9th and July 15th. Please take a moment to review. It's the two things which I think you already pointed out. Floor is open for a motion unless there are changes.
Mr. Chair, I see two small clerical errors in the time that the meetings were called to order.
Okay,
So I would move to approve the minutes from July 9 and July 15 with amendments to reflect calling to order at 12:30 p.m. and 4:50 p.m. respectively.
okay. Right, do we have a second? Second, Ms. Till, so motion by Mr. Shirley to approve these 2 minutes, second by Ms. Till. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved from July 9th and July 15th. Next item on the agenda is public comment. And has everyone had a moment to sign the paper?
It's finishing up. Right.
There's multiple sheets, so. Okay, I'll have 3 minutes and I'll call your name. I'll let you know when your time begins. First person on the list is Joan Roden. Go ahead.
At the last meeting, I stood before you to comment publicly and I asked for the following questions verbatim. Just what is the overwhelming amount of people who have challenged votes in the Clarke County elections post 2020? 175, 30? What's the data on the concerning amount of people that this discussion appears to address? Since that time, I received no information from the Board of Elections, no precise confirmation of the data that I requested. The questions were pointed and they were addressed publicly for a reason. I don't do this for my health. I do this to get answers, and without answers to the above questions and precise, accurate data, we are right back where we started when you had the original discussion about the burdensome voter challenges, and then you tabled the discussion. Your current agenda does not any more enlighten the public than it did last month, at which time the local newspaper came out to discover what the changes to challenges might be. This is not a rowdy bunch of rebels, but a concerned citizenry who show up at these meetings to try to get answers for the sake of the public. It is our civic duty to get answers to our questions. Without concrete data on numbers of challenges that come in and where they're coming from, and without information in regard to how much time and money it costs the Board of Elections, how are we to determine what is prudent or frivolous? Since you failed to respond to my questions, I came today with the very same lack of transparent information, even after seeking it. So I ask you, who is responsible for responding to voter challenge requests? Is it your highest paid staff? Is it your most burdened staff? Do you see the need for additional staff? Is additional staff even on the agenda? Money for the things that you want to make happen seems to show up even when there isn't overwhelming support. I would think that if you choose to go forward with charging people to challenge votes, that you will be opening yourself to legal response. What do the attorneys say? As of today, August 13th, there are no minutes posted for residents to review from the July 13th meeting where you tabled this discussion. The last minutes posted are from June 24, 2024. Could this be considered a lack of transparency? This is the first time I've seen these minutes. Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Mr. Earl D'Amato. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Give me a moment.
I didn't know.
Give me a moment to reset my timer, please. And you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, I didn't know I was going to speak, to be honest with you. I thought I was coming to hear the result of a decision on moving from Unitarian Church back to the school. I've lived here 30 years. Most of those years we voted at the school. Nobody ever complained about lines. It was kind of a fun thing. We talked to each other. We all knew each other. A couple of times we went to the Trinity, the Baptist Church, Timothy Road Baptist Church. It was like walking into this room. Other than we knew it was a Baptist church, we knew nothing more. It was very neutral. When you go to Unitarian Church, it's not neutral. The 2020 election, they had a big Black Lives Matter banner outside the door to the right. Now, I'm not getting into that kind of thing. Okay, but I'm just saying that's kind of an ideological statement. They took that down and now there is the gay pride flag and the Black Lives Matter flag on their main sign. And of course, it's probably more than 150 feet. I was going to measure it, but I didn't. You go into the place and it's all gay life, gay pride stuff around. Now, I don't care about gay pride. I served in the military. I have no feeling one way or the other about someone's preference for their sex or anything else. That's not what it's about. It's about it should be a neutral site. And one of the answers I got from the election commission was there were too many people going to the school. Well, so you split your staff now, and there's very few people going over there to the Baptist, to the Unitarian Church. You walk in, you might be seeing, the most I've ever seen there is 2 other people when I voted there. So you got all the staff sitting around idle when they could be down at the school, and we could all just go to the school. It's kind of industrial management. So what I am strongly urging is that we all go back to a neutral site. And I've talked to my neighbors. I was president of our homeowners association for 16 years, over 100 people in our 100 residents, or what do you call buildings. And they also, most of them support it. I will honestly say that the pastor of the church lives in our subdivision as one of the officers. But besides that, that's not the point. The point is we need a neutral spot and nobody complained. There's plenty of parking. And with early voting, which we didn't have before, and so many people early voting and all that, I think it makes sense to consolidate your staff. And let's go back to the school where it was a neutral site. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Jacob Hayes.
Hey y'all, so I didn't see the early voting part in the agenda, so I'm gonna be winging it a tiny bit. I'm the president of the Young Dems. I've been talking to the College Republicans, the Student Government Association about early voting. We know that things are contentious. We're probably going to see greater turnout this year than we did in 2022. People are most likely more reluctant to vote by mail. So we need to be conscious of early voting, I think. And right now in the current proposal, it's more limited than it was in 2022. And honestly, the extended hours from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. don't make sense to me. in 2022, it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you go on campus, 5 to 7, it's a ghost town. Nobody's really there. 7 a.m. before 8 a.m. classes is when people will actually go to vote. So originally we wanted to ask for 5 days of early voting. I know that y'all's staff and resources are limited. So what I would ask for is just 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on 2 of the days, one on a Monday, Wednesday, one on a Tuesday for each class schedule. Supported by College Republicans, Young Dems. We're going to work with SGA to get the word out. And I would greatly appreciate it if y'all considered that, because youth voters, we don't turn out like we probably should. So let's make it a little bit easier, Let's make it happen. And yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay. Next person is Mr. Michael Glendon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I just want to touch on a few points. First, I want to say that penalizing citizens who are challenging voters sounds to me an awful like a different form of a polling tax, which I thought we got rid of a long time ago. And we don't need to reinstate that at all. I find it interesting in reviewing some of the information that I've received in response to my Open Records Act, that many private organizations that bundle voter applications and send them into the election office have many of those rejected because the people do not live in Athens-Clarke County. But do you charge those people a fee for your time and effort to determine that those people don't live in Athens-Clarke County? No, you don't. So why do you want to charge people a fee for challenging voters? And regarding those private entities that submit bulk registration requests, who verifies that those people are citizens and are actually eligible to vote? That's an interesting question. Second, in the 2020 election, 9% of the over $250 million that Jeff Zuckerberg distributed to influence elections was spent in Georgia. This money was routed through the Center for Technology and Civic Life. $115,000 of that $31 million was spent in Athens-Clarke County. I think the citizens would like to know how you used that $115,000. And if you say you didn't, then it's a matter of public record that that money came to Athens-Clarke County. So what did you do with that money? And then since Georgia's passed Senate Bill 62, which outlaws the use of private funds, I think we would like to know that you're going to adhere to the requirements of the law. Third, I'm confident illegal aliens are being registered to vote in Athens, and I say that for several reasons. When you have a mayor who keeps secret for 3 years that he's been working to bring in refugees into Athens, when we have evidence that entities in Athens are working to bring in illegal immigrants into Athens, when we know that there's so many that are here that the school board has to acknowledge in its budget that they have to hire additional staff because of the children of these illegal immigrants. And then when the election board says we want to publish all the voting material and ballots in Spanish, well, what else are we supposed to believe than the fact that there are illegal immigrants who are being registered to vote in Athens-Clarke County? If that's not the case, we'd like to see the evidence that you're not doing that. Finally, I've always assumed that the election process would manage with integrity, but I no longer feel that way. I have no confidence in the electronic voting system since there is no transparency on the back end regarding the administration of the data and the software, and the fact that the elections office is not staffed with the appropriate people. Thank you.
Next person signed up is Miss Jacqueline Elsner. Oh, I see.
I'm Jacqueline Elsner, 315 Caldwell Circle, Athens, and I follow the state election board
information, and last week they passed a rule that said any county election board can ask for a reasonable inquiry before they certify a county election. And I've spoken with you many times, and I know y'all are extremely well trained in how our county elections are operated, and I've never observed y'all refusing to certify an election. And today I listened to Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporter, and he was asked, can a county's board of elections choose which races to certify? Like, and not certify other races on the ballot? And the answer was no. I kind of chuckled. It's not like a la carte ordering of a meal. You can't go, well, I want to swap my whatever. You have to certify the whole ballot, not pick and choose. And I'm very grateful that y'all are as engaged in the actual operation of our elections, which are entirely free and fair and conducted with impeccable integrity by our staff and the poll workers and everybody. That I just have never seen that happen here, and I have full confidence y'all will look over what happens in our upcoming election and know that you can certify it with quick confidence. Thank you very much for how y'all conduct our elections here.
The next person is John, is it Kirkley? Kirkley, yes, thank you.
I'm with the DPG voter protection effort, and I just want to echo the comments about the need for extended hours and early voting. People that work may only be able to get there at say 7 a.m. in the morning or later in the evening, and also urge you to have Sunday voting hours. So,
Thank you. And final person signed up is Dorothy Kirks.
Kirkley, here's mom.
Oh, great. Oh, Kirk, okay, got it. Hold on, let me reset my time here. All right,
Good afternoon. I'm Dorothy Kirkley and John Kirkley's mom. I'm a voter actually in Jackson County, 3 miles out the Clarke County limit, but I'm very interested in voter protection and accessibility, and I'm a volunteer, including with the ABA Task Force on Democracy. I echo the Young Dems and my son's comments about voting hours. And that's one of the things I'm most concerned about. In addition, I see 2 other really important issues here. One is, remember, Shirley's going to bring up possible changes to the challenge procedure. And we all know that the challenge procedure is, can I say, challenging. And I know it takes lots of staff time, and very interested in what his proposal's going to be, but I can't really comment on it since I didn't see it online. Maybe it was, but I didn't see it. So I'm interested in that. And then also you've got this new Secretary of State online registration and cancellation portal, which is another new requirement added by the state of Georgia that, potentially may make y'all's job more difficult. Clarke has a terrific reputation and record for voter integrity, election integrity, and proper procedures to certify votes. So I just know you'll continue with that and deal with these 2024 challenges in a great way. Thank you.
is there any additional member of the public wishing to make comment? It has not been called. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. Chair is going to recognize the director to give her report.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have a agenda before you, but I want to add as item number 4 to update you on the recall petition and making comments and questions number 5. Before I do, I would like to introduce, if you haven't met already, the interim assistant city manager, Andrew Saunders, who's with us. I want to make sure that he's recognized and let you be able to connect with him. Is our liaison for the city manager's office.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all's service.
Thank you.
Also, Pam is going to update you with the activity report for July. So, yeah, you would do that this time.
Good afternoon, board.
Hey.
We go over the activities report for the month of July. So we have a total of 82,153 voters, in which 65,203 of those are active voters. And we have 16,950 that are inactive. We've had a total for the month of July cancellations of 103, 96 of them which are deceased, and 7 felon removals. Voter IDs that were requested for the month of July was 28. And I think Audrey would mention it to you about the absentee ballots, which we don't have any at this time, and it probably won't be till next month. So that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
The next discussion is about us preparing for the general election. General election is November the 5th. The first thing is the ballot proofing. We'll let you know that I have made connection with the Center for Elections for the Secretary of State's office, my ballot builder. And she provided me a list of the state contests, state and federal contests. Because we don't have any locals, I was able to go ahead and forward that information to our vendor. That information has been translated in Spanish and has been sent to our ballot builder, and I'm awaiting the questions. I understand there are 3 questions that's going to be on the ballot. And those questions will be sent to me. I will forward them to the vendor. Then it will be sent back. Then all the information will be sent to the Secretary of State's office. From that point, I will receive our ballot proof. I will proof the English version, and then the vendor and I will drive over to CES to proof the ballot marking device in the Spanish version. And then I will be able to sign off on the ballot, and then we'll be in the process of receiving our ballot package so that we can begin our LNA process. And then Lisa's going to take it from there, and she will share with you the LNA process and then come back with the poll worker training.
Good afternoon, board. We have currently scheduled LNA testing, logic and accuracy testing for the public to begin on Monday, September 23rd and run through Friday, September 27th with a not published yet, but will be published start time of 9 o'clock until 3 each day. The first day, I think we're going to start at 10, and then the subsequent days will start at 9. This process is open to the public. Anyone who would like to see how we load the project, how we test our equipment, you're welcome to come and be with us. We're more than happy to have observers there and to answer any questions about what we do. Poll worker training will begin on September 9th. We're going to this time hold some larger classes at the library in the auditorium, test that out and see how that goes. The rest of the classes will be held in the training room, and those will run until October 10th. Some of the days will not have classes, of course, when we're doing logic and accuracy testing, and some down days so that we can prepare for that, and delivery days, but we'll get everybody through training.
All right.
Can you elaborate on the LNA a little bit more? On
Like what we
what
do?
does loading a project mean?
Okay.
And what does the result of the test show once you?
The results, so we load the election data that's going to be used on all of the machines, all of the ballot marking devices on election day and advanced voting. We load that information into each ballot marking device separately. They're each tested separately by producing ballots in a random series on the ballot marking device to make sure that they produce the results that we're expecting. So the ballots are printed, and then the scanners are programmed, and all of those ballot test decks are run through the scanner to make sure that they produce the results, like I said, that we're expecting. We have never had an anomaly. It's always been correct. We also test our absentee ballots the same way. They're run through the central scanner that will be used to tabulate the actual absentee ballots. That test deck is tabulated by hand for accuracy and tested against the machine results.
And for the public, anybody who's interested in applying to be a poll worker, the application is available now. So anybody's interested in helping with the elections this go around, please. apply.
accgov.com/jobs.
Jobs, yes.
When does it close? And it's open now. When does it close?
It will close the end of this month.
How many do you need?
We're hoping to hire, we're probably going to interview about 50 people. You know, all of those won't get through the process, but, you know, finish the entire process, but hopefully we'll have 40 when we're finished.
Okay, the next,
So the hiring process is the normal HR onboarding process that any employee of Athens-Clarke County would go through, which
That's right.
includes background
Includes
checks.
a background check.
Make sure that's clear.
all right, Audra's gonna update you on absentee balloting and our voters getting ready and geared up for requesting their absentee ballots because it's just around the corner.
Good evening, everyone. Well, afternoon/evening. I also want to add that for the month of July, we had 6 open records requests. And then moving on to absentee, I just, we got a lot of big dates coming up, important dates. We're only about 80+ days out from election day. 18 days to UGA football kickoff. And more importantly, 6 days away from Monday, August 19th, which is the first day that we can take applications for an absentee ballot. If you are requesting an absentee ballot or you know someone who's doing it, just please take your time and read over your application and fill out each part. Especially if you're considered elderly or disabled, section 12 on the back needs to be completed. If it's a student, somebody who lives here and they're away in school, they might be in Tennessee in school. Your ballot can be mailed to you there, but you must complete section 5 for your temporary ballot mailing address. But in section 7 is also important. You have to include your date of birth and your driver's license or state ID number. You can't do one or the other, it has to be both. And our clerks in the office, when they mail out applications, they're making sure that they highlight all of these important parts, even the form continues and what you need to do on the back. And then this part is down here is for the office. But if you have any questions or you know anybody have questions about absentee voting, about the application process, deadlines, when we start mailing, and I'll go ahead and say that the first ballots will be mailed out on October 7th, Monday, October 7th. But anybody with questions, please call us 706-613-3150. You can ask for Audra, or you can ask for Pam. She knows, got my back here. But once again, the number 706-613-3150. Please call us with your questions. Do not go by gossip you're hearing or what you hear on the news that might not even be Athens-Clarke County. Thank you.
That's right. We also have an email address that those absentee ballot applications can be submitted to our office at, and that's votebyabsentee@accgov.com. Again, votebyabsentee@accgov.com.
We'll make sure it's in the minutes.
Awesome, thank you. All right, the next thing that kind of flows to get us to election day is advanced voting. So today I have a recommendation, and this recommendation is based on already the conversations that we've had with our locations that are listed, as well as the added location of UGA Tate Center. Had conversations with all of the people that are part of the facilities. And so what I'm presenting today is, for one, I want to note that advanced voting will start on Tuesday, the week of the 14th, rather than the 14th itself because of the state holiday. we will, or excuse me, it's a national holiday. And, so we'll start on the 15th. And then that's the first week, and that will, my recommendation is for the Linden House to be our main location. We have to have a discussion about that, of course, because it has a lot to do with the location of the drop box. Then we're adding the library on the second week. So there are additional vote opportunities that we're adding. So the library added the second week, along with starting on Saturday, October the 19th. We have 2 Sunday voting dates. 2 Sundays, October 20th through the 27th, only at the elections office from 12 to 3. We also, again, as I stated, we have UGA Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with extended hours on Wednesday. And then we have extended hours at all locations on the 30th from 8 to 7 p.m. at the office, 9 to 7 at the locations, which our added sites expects us to start at 9 rather than 7 and rather than 8 as we do. So that's what I have for you. And then, and I know that's part of your agenda. So I'll move on to the next item, which is the relocation of 7A. Those voters are currently assigned to Unitarian Universalists, and it was recommended that it be voted today to move voters of 7A to Timothy Baptist Church. We have already sent notification to Unitarian Universalists that the vote will take place today, the date that the ad appeared in the paper by law. State law requires us to do that. State law does not require us to do the 2 things that I'm getting ready to share with you, and that is to have an ad to run in the paper tomorrow, requesting that it run on the 18th, I believe it is, the 19th. And then we're going to post signs. This is required by state law. Post signs at the old precinct, as well as post signs in 3 places in the vicinity thereof to let the voters know that those changes have taken place. And it is our goal to have these new registration cards to our voters of 7A no later than September 15th. Then the recall petition update. I wanted to let you know that there was a petition issued to Mr. DePiola. If this is a recall petition for the seat of Mayor Gertz, that petition should include and return back to our office. The 45-day clock is September 13th. The petition should include 21,405 signatures. And both the candidate, the elected official, Mayor Gertz, as well as Mr. DePiola, are both aware of those dates. And I just wanted to make sure you have that. The last thing I want to do, it's not part of my agenda, but I wanted to announce Aletha Perkins, who is our administrative assistant, will be resigning, and her last day will be on August the 23rd. I want to tell her publicly, thank you for a job well done. I'm a little overwhelmed, but Aletha has been very supportive to me. Has been very supportive to you, the board.
Absolutely.
This will be a big loss to Athens-Clarke County. But I want to wish her well in her future endeavors. Be a blessing. She's going over to the city of Atlanta. Be a blessing as you have been a blessing to us. And we'll be watching from afar. Yes, to make sure. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions.
Great, thank you for the report. I do have a few comments and questions. Happy to go first unless someone else, another board member wishes to go. Sure. Just a couple, questions and clarification on a few things. So I just want to clarify that the schedule presented in the director's report is a proposal put forward by the staff. The board will look at that and make their recommendation and decision on what that will be. So this is not the final set of information. So just to make sure that that's clear. Regarding 7A, I just wanted to clarify a few additional points. That, correct me if I'm wrong, the Title 21, whatever section is applicable to this, means you must remain in precinct. Correct? Right?
Yes, based on the timeline, we need to stay within the boundaries.
And based on the timeline. So
Yes.
that's why at the last meeting, I was tasked with approaching the Unitarian Church, seeing if they would still host us because the board felt, it could be a bit of a misunderstanding being moved. Unfortunately, they were not able to, and the only other place in the precinct that was able to host us was Timothy Baptist Church. So that's where we'll go because we needed to remain within those boundaries. There's not enough time for us to draw lines before an election. And the voter cards, will those be sent by our staff or is that sent by the Secretary of State's vendor?
So this is new. Yes, it will be sent by the vendor.
Okay.
And it's the same vendor who provides us our poll pads. So they will print the cards, mail the cards, and then give us an invoice of what that cost is.
Is it the same vendor that screwed up last time?
New vendor.
Wonderful. Okay, that's all I have.
We are having a hard time hearing. I know they're not hearing.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have microphones.
So a PA system. That's not our part. A little bit better in the future. Or you'll turn around and face out.
Yes.
Might work better if you were sitting on the other side of the tables.
Facts.
So move.
I have a question.
I'm done. Would you like to go next?
I have a question regarding Director Sosby, what you had shared. And I may have misunderstood. The update on precinct. The update on precinct 7A, did I hear you say that you're waiting for us to make a motion on officially, finally making that change?
Yes, so the ad did state that the vote would take place today on the move,
Gotcha.
the proposed change.
Okay. I don't have that on our agenda for today. That would need to be amendment to the agenda. Unless I'm missing it being here. I get why it needs to happen. I thought that when we had made the motion about notifying, publishing notice, that was gonna set in motion this process. Does that mean we need to amend the agenda for that?
Yes, it should be on the agenda amended, yes.
Well, there was a motion last time.
Right, the published notice of the change.
Yes. But there was some
What's happening,
Notice, and then the vote to actually change the location.
which was supposed to be today.
All right. Okay. So then before we forget about that, I would move that we amend the agenda by adding item 4 under new business to the item.
Is it old business since we've been talking about it?
Yes.
Okay.
Item 2 under old business.
Number, the current item under old business is number 1, and then add a number 2 item under old business, changing the polling location in precinct 7A.
No motion on the floor, second, Ms. Till. All those in favor of amending the agenda to include that?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
agenda is amended. All right, so are there any more specific questions on the director's report? Not an agenda item we have going forward.
I have a couple of questions,
Go ahead.
but we might not, I think, let me look back, but I think about the locations, I think we have that on the, yeah, we do. We have that in new business, so I'll just defer.
I have a question for the report, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go.
Just with the schedule, the extended hours, it's the same question I ask at every election. Have you looked at when you came up with the extended hours, did you look at the ones from 2020 to see the number of folks who had come in? Are these justified or is it an overkill? What do you think?
I think it's justified for the kind of election that we have. In 2020, it's hard really to compare 2020 because 2020, there was a big hike with absentee balloting. And then there were voters who were social distancing and they were, confined to their homes. So it's kind of tricky to look at 2020. And then if you go further, look at the 2016, it's a totally different look as well. But I do believe that based on the type of election that we have, that extended hours will bring in a little more for turnout between the hours of 5 and 7, but not a dramatic amount, I don't believe.
Well, the Sunday voting has generally been very, very slow. Do you think that's also justified?
I think only because of the kind of election.
Okay.
And the fact that I do want to see us reach close to 80% voter turnout. We had a little over 75% voter turnout in 2016, I believe it was.
Okay.
And so we're kind of brainstorming right now to find out how we can get our turnout a little higher. So yes, I think putting as many opportunities for our voters.
Well, I've always been skeptical about Sunday voting, but because could be a election where it could have a good turnout.
Yeah.
Let's we'll go with that.
Carla, does the voting system allow us to see what the uptake is during that period? Like if we wanted to see for this current cycle, number of votes on a Sunday?
Not the vote system itself, but the number of people that check in at the poll pads, we're able to, and we track that
Okay.
from the hours of 5 to 7. So we can look at, what does this mean? I always like to see how much it's costing us to have the additional hours. And I try to provide that information in my budget and with the manager's office. So.
Good. Anybody else? Move on. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is old business. And the first agenda item is discussion about possible changes to voter challenge procedure. The chair recognizes Mr. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I'll try and speak up for the benefit of those back there. Just for context for those watching and those here in the room, this came about as an idea. I've heard of other boards of elections who are considering something like this as a way to balance out the otherwise unchecked, unlimited ability of any one of us to challenge any number of voters in our county. Before we proceeded with thinking about what it should look like or whether we should, I asked y'all if you were interested in us even thinking about this, because the first step would then be to ask for legal advice about whether it held water, the argument that we could do this. I thank you all very much for supporting that. We did proceed with that, and we received advice from our attorneys about this. And as I said at the time, to anybody who would listen, if the advice came back less than positive and encouraging, I would be the first to say, I'm not willing to proceed. And that is indeed what happened. So I, for one, am satisfied from their advice. I'm disappointed, but I'm satisfied that their advice is that there's no reading in their mind of the law that would allow us to proceed with that. And so I, for one, am willing to let it lie there, but that's where it got to for me. That's just me.
Okay. All right, anyone else? I'll just add that the attorney's office provided us with an attorney-client privilege document that was their opinion on what we had inquired about and what rested at that. Since it is attorney-client privilege, if it was the will of the board, we could hold an executive session next time. I don't think it's wise to do today. So I open the floor to that, but yeah.
Chair, I do have a question for the staff, for the director. How are these challenges processed? What is the procedure? If you can just briefly tell us, is it only by email? Do they come in and fill out a form? What are the different ways these challenges take place?
Basically, when we do a challenge procedure, it starts when a voter comes in and they're challenging
Okay,
The
so they have to
voters
come in,
resident.
they have to come in
Excuse me,
physically.
be quiet, please.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And
You
and I-
speak up and we'll be
I
quiet.
hear what you're saying.
You're talking about executive privilege, executive session. So Rocky, speak up so we can hear
We
back
can't hear
here.
it.
We came here to hear.
Is there a microphone or something?
There's not.
Well, can we turn off the fan?
We can't hear your speaking here. We cannot hear. They cannot hear.
I know, I am sorry.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. We could look at a different venue.
Oh, wow.
Or- I'm not sure.
If you're talking about executive session on something that we're here to hear
Oh.
about, these people have a right to know.
I know. Go on, Director.
Yeah, you were mentioning the different ways somebody can present a challenge. So they have to personally come in and fill out a form. It's not just receiving an email.
Correct. They have to come in, and once they come in and fill out the information, and that's when we would start doing our investigation for it, and then we have to present it, to you guys, and that's when we would have the special called meeting so that we can, set up a session for a challenge hearing. And that would give the opportunity for the voter who's being challenged and the person who's making the challenge to come in and, speak their opinions at that time.
Now, when the person comes in, do we require any identification, whether they are citizens or I would say, Athens-Clarke County voters or?
Only a person who is registered to vote in Clarke County or who is a registered voter can challenge a registered voter.
So we ask for that.
Yes,
Yes.
and so we would check that, of course. We would check, is this person registered to vote? Also, the person who's making the challenge has to bring in probable cause. They can't just come in and say, I'm here to challenge these 5 voters. They have to give us reasoning why these voters are being challenged.
Okay.
And a challenge cannot be done within 45 days of an election.
Right.
That's one of the changes that was made through the Senate bill, House bill. On the bills.
So, and the last question, so is there any filtration that takes place at your level where you say, none of these 5 reasons apply, so we cannot accept the challenge?
That's your decision.
That's,
Up to the board.
we all don't do it.
Right, we're
At
just
that.
gonna provide you, here is what's being challenged, this person's being challenged, this is the probable cause, and we've done our research, and this is what we're presenting to you. You study it, the
Okay.
board, and then you decide if this person should be challenged or removed from the voter list, basically.
Don't we have something, I'm sorry,
Oh, that's right.
don't we have something in our code that defines what challenges can and cannot be made? I mean,
There isn't, like, to say which is probable cause and which isn't, no.
we can't say that, maybe a good idea to challenge would be, I live at 120 Main Street and I know this person lived next door to me. And I saw the truck come and I saw their move and I haven't seen them in the last year.
Right,
That would be a good challenge.
yes,
Yes.
so then that challenger would say that. That would be their probable cause. Then I would present that to you and then present to you what we found, and then you would make the decision.
And there's nothing in the code book that would clarify any of these challenges.
It's all about residency, basically. Because that's
So
what
when-
determines where you're registered to vote.
So the person that I'm challenging, they would need to come back to you or at the time that they're making this challenge and show, I'm still getting mail there, I'm still getting, but if they're not actually living there, if they own the property, have not been able to sell the house, maybe they're still they're voting where they've moved to. I mean, there's got to be some kind of line in the sand to say, this proves that they don't live here, this proves that they've moved. I don't know if it's through the post office that you can gain any of that information.
So we would bring in what information we have. The person who's being challenged would also bring in their proof to say that, yes, I do live here, and this is how and why, and I'll show you why. basically. And then there is a code section that talks about residency. But I don't have it here right in front of me.
And you're also able to check with other counties if this person has moved there or not, don't you?
Well, it all goes back to their voter history. So we're gonna pull all of that. You know, was this person registered to vote in another county? Could they still be living in that other county? We're gonna look, that's gonna be part of our investigation, so to speak. And we'll just bring that all to you, present it to you. They voted, they were registered in this county during this year and they voted. Here we show they actually voted.
Right.
But since then, they come in and they have a power bill that shows that their power's been turned on at this address in Clarke County, or maybe not. So those are things that they can bring to show.
Do you get a list from the post office showing people that have moved?
There is a process through the Secretary of State's office. It's called,
Notice of change of address.
yes, so the NCOA, notice of change of address. We do a cleanup confirmation process every other year as of NCOAs. So any person who has changed their address with the post office, they're sent what we refer to as a NCOA confirmation letter. It goes to the former address and the new address. So that way, hopefully the voter would get that confirmation notice at either one. Maybe they had their mail transferred and maybe they didn't. So it goes to the address that we have on file with the elections office, as well as the address that they changed at the post office. And voters, if they receive that, they fill that confirmation notice out, and then they send it in. And there's a clock for that. I believe it's
45 days.
45 days. And then they fill that out. And then when they fill it out, we update it in the system to say that confirmation notice was completed. And it takes them out of the NCOA clock. Otherwise, they go into inactive status. If they're active, they go into inactive status.
Could you explain one more thing of how the state of Georgia is a member of ERIC
Yes.
and what that is and how that affects all this?
Yes, so Georgia is one of the states who is a part of ERIC. ERIC is an electronic registration.
Information center.
Yes, information. Thank you. Somewhat. But anyway, many states have joined ERIC and we share information. So when somebody registers to vote in another state, we get confirmation from that through ERIC.
Or another county?
Yes.
Mhm.
Another county, another state. County, as far as county is concerned, when somebody registers in another county, because we are a uniform registration state, we're able to retrieve their voter registration from their former county. And then their activity continues, their history continues. Just like for me, moving from Hall County, all of my activity and history followed me here. So all of my registration, every election that I voted in is in my history. Dang. Georgia. Yeah, we do. We are fortunate to have that.
Still, you have anything else?
It just occurred to, I'm sorry.
You have anything? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just occurred to me that what I'm remembering having said to some people was not during the meeting. It was after our last meeting. We had some people from the public. I recognize a few of the faces here. And I was able to speak to them and I understood better the reason for concern that some people were feeling. The way this sounds out of context, this attempt, this idea of limiting the ability of somebody to challenge voters. And I was relieved that once I spoke one-on-one with these people, I believe several of them were able to better understand what I was trying to say. The idea here is not the one by one, more like what you were describing. My neighbor, I saw them move. How come they're still registered here? I know they don't live here. Let me talk about this. Those that we've heard several of like that, I believe there's been at least two we've approved. We've confirmed the challenges, removed from the rolls because it was a legitimate challenge. But what I am afraid of, which has thankfully not yet reached Clarke County's offices yet, is what I'm hearing about of these mass challenges of hundreds, if not thousands of electors at a time. And just the fact that our staff, awesome though they are, they only have so many hours in the day. We know because we tax them from those hours during election time. And so at a certain point, the scale does not work. If we receive 12,000 challengers or even 2,000 challengers, the amount of time it takes to look up their history, to pull notification, to send letters, to get the postage, the printing and everything, at some point, that would completely consume their time and they wouldn't be able to do LNA, wouldn't be able to process applications, wouldn't be able to mail out applications and their absentee ballots. And so that's what I'm afraid of. It has not yet materialized, thank goodness. But again, this is much ado about nothing as far as I'm concerned, because we've been advised that there's nothing there yet for us legally speaking. But that was where I was coming from with this, just to try and put at ease any other people that might have concerns about the intent behind this. I completely support the right of each of us to challenge the registration of anybody, especially when we know for a fact they just moved or they got divorced and she moved to California or whatever the result might be. But I'm afraid of the less organic, the more just bulk challenges. There's this one thing in this spreadsheet that says this, so I'm going to challenge 750 voters. That's what I'm more afraid of. That's where this was coming from. So I wanted to be sure I mentioned that to everybody.
And just to piggyback off of what you're saying, when you look at processes that we handle in the office, just an example, we just completed verifying signatures of 4 different independent petition candidates. That delayed us getting voter registrations that we have been holding back from the May election. So we're getting emails from voters. Hey, I registered to vote in May. I ain't got my card yet. Well, it's because that process had to wait because this petition has a stale date. So that's a prime example of what you're saying. When we can get bogged down in something, it delays other processes that need to be moving.
In addition, we had over tons of applications from the independent candidate for DA. So that was thousands of signatures that, I mean, we had to do all hands on deck, weekends, everything, just to make sure those were verified. And at this moment, we're still now having like over 3,000 of, drivers registrations, 500 online voters, over thousands of NCOAs. And, this stuff has got to be done and done correct so that we can make sure that we're having an accurate vote, an accurate election. So that's where we're now.
I know I'm not supposed to speak, but this is germane to, I think, what you're talking about. I was working with outlets from Force 47.
Sir, this is not a back and forth meeting. We're having a meeting here. You had your 3 minutes. You had your 3 minutes to speak.
This is not.
We're conducting business.
About people who, I went to their houses and they're abandoned houses. And yet they're on a voting roll. That's why I went there. And I wanted to tell you that. And there's a whole bunch of students, they all vacated their apartments. And I don't know how you handle that. So I'm just trying to help you here. Not your meeting.
I'd be more than happy to talk to you after the meeting. Spend as much time as you'd like.
Well, it's the first time I've been here, so I didn't know the process either.
Yeah, most public meetings work like that. So the next item on the agenda, hold on. Every board member is satisfied with that agenda item? Okay. We're going to move forward. The next item on the agenda, on the amended agenda, is precinct 7A. And voting on that change. Attorney, do we have that resolution or?
I don't think that it requires a resolution to
Okay.
change just a vote in the agenda, which I'll send to the Attorney General's office and Secretary of State.
Okay, like the minutes or?
Would it be sufficient to move that we change the polling location for precinct 7A to Timothy Baptist Church? Would an effective date be needed or?
Yeah, I mean, any more detail would be great.
All right. I move that we change the polling location for precinct 7A to Timothy Baptist Church effective September the 15th, 2024. Or 14th, 2024.
Okay. Motion, Mr. Shirley, second, Ms. Till. All those in favor of the motion by Mr. Shirley, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimous. staff will begin the process. Great, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. Okay. So agenda item number one under new business are advanced voting times, dates, locations for the November general election. My name is attached to that, but I didn't have any specific comments that was. It hasn't already been mentioned. What is our timeline?
So, our timeline, I believe is 30 days before the election is when we have to have advanced notification posted before advanced voting starts, 30 days before advanced voting starts.
So.
So, yeah.
Early September.
Yes.
When-
So, but I do want to make sure this is mentioned. 21-2385 it talks about, it's the portion about advanced voting, but it also speaks about the drop boxes. And so I spoke with the attorney's office so I could get clarity, because number one, drop boxes have to be available only during advanced voting. Okay? If we resort to only having, if we resort to having Linden House be the main location and not have advanced voting at the elections office, then the ballot drop box will need to be moved to Linden House. The state election board rule that's been changed, it also requires 24-hour video surveillance. We would have to move a camera, which we have, that would monitor that as well. So, so it was kind of like a give and take. Do we hold early voting at the office and keep the drop box there? Or do we have early voting at Linden House, move the drop box, but still have the option for voters to walk their ballot in if they want and turn it into the clerk? They just won't have access to the ballot drop box at the office. It will be moved to Linden House.
So the office will be occupied and open for regular business during that time. Is that not sufficient? It has to be at the main polling location?
Voting, as far as advanced voting is concerned, no, it does not have to be at the main office location. And the idea of moving to the Linden House is so that we're able to provide more voting compartments. Because as you know, our office, the max we can get in there is 4 to 6. It's very crowded. The way the way this virus is traveling right now, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know we need to prepare. I mean, I've heard a lot of people, I got a lot of people that's dealing with COVID right now. So I think we need to consider looking at a bigger space. And that's what we've done proactively. We have had communication and conversations, meetings with the Linden House. They are ready for us to be there for 3 weeks on Saturday and Sunday. And again, we're able to have more voting compartments for our main location, which that will be our main location. Again, moving the drop box, having advanced voting at Linden House, and then having the option for voters, if they brought their ballots in, they will be able to turn them in to our clerk there. And we'll have signs as we did in 2020. We had no advanced voting at the office. We had it just at Linden House as the main location. We'll have many of signs. We will also include this information online as prescribed by law. We will also have advertisement in the paper and every opportunity that I have with radio ads and any kind of.
I've heard you, that's good.
I'm starting to like it.
Yeah.
I'm starting to like, but anyway.
Charlotte, rush hour drive with Charlotte.
Yes. But yes, but every opportunity I have, I will make sure our voters are aware of their opportunities to vote, for sure.
Will that drop box be outside or inside?
Definitely inside. Yeah. Senate Bill 202.
I have a question for you and or Mr. Assistant Manager. Do you know if the Linden House currently has security cameras and they're already set up for that?
So I believe they have a camera system. I cannot tell you that it meets any state requirements for the Dropbox.
That's the art center side.
Yeah, and that was my other question. Is it that meeting room or the back room or the center? What space are you?
It'll be that back room, the meeting room, back room, meeting room, the center room, yeah, that, all of that.
The one up front? When
They
you-
go in that door.
Meeting room, and then there's that like open area where you can come in, and then the hallway that goes to the meeting room.
Yes.
That will be ours.
Which is
You
the,
go in the front door, the main front door.
Front door feels like the back side of the building
Yeah.
to me. You know what I mean?
yeah, well,
Where the big
Yeah,
door is.
that part doesn't.
But we'll have signage. We're
Right.
sit and enter, and we will have two different entries, exit. It'll be separate from each other.
Did you go out in 2020 when we had building there? It'll be the same way.
I voted downtown.
Okay.
I was there. Excellent setup, excellent, one of the better setups.
So it's really whatever, whatever you decide, if you keep advanced voting at the office. But it's our hope that we can direct our votes there and just have our office as the area that voters can return their absentee ballot.
Parking is so much.
Parking better, more space. It's the answer.
Does the public transit to Linden House? I don't recall.
I'm pretty sure it's downtown. that parking.
Yeah.
It's fairly close.
That's a distance to, yeah,
Yeah, I think it
Late-
is.
Play Park. Got it. Okay. Um, yeah, I'm hoping we could decide on this at the next meeting. Does that work?
It'd be nice to have it sooner.
Right.
Can I just say, I've already secured enough poll workers to work where everything is fully staffed with tentative hours. So if we need to add hours to what they're doing, they would probably appreciate more notice because they're already planning their schedules based on this.
Yeah, I think my fellow board members know it's coming out of my mouth, but, there's a lot. It's a big election for everyone. And I think extended hours that's allowable by law is what we need to do. I know this has been a point of contention in the past, but it sounds like we're on the right path to hiring enough poll worker staff to make that happen. I haven't really wrapped my head around how that would work with all of this, but in a perfect world, every one of these would be 7 to 7 for 3 weeks, in my perfect world. I don't live in a perfect world.
I'm not sure our locations would allow that, but
And-
Linden House could.
And that I do understand, and so that's why I want to take some time and we can make sure maybe other board members have some different ideas. I don't want to rush into making such an important decision.
Could we not choose our regular meeting to do that, but have a meeting in between now and our regular meeting and vote on this? That will give them some extra time.
I'm open to that as well.
They'll give them at least, 15
An extra meeting
days.
is additional burden to the staff. So is it like, do you want an extra meeting or?
Yeah.
Would you want to be on like a Tuesday
Flexible.
We're flexible on that.
next week? Has to be in August.
I think it's last day.
Let's have it at 7:30 at night on Friday.
And I check out at 5.
Saturday.
Next Tuesday looks good. Any day, I think, next week, except on Thursday. I believe.
Right.
How's the 20th for y'all?
That's fine.
This one, yeah.
So August 20th,
And
that work? For everyone?
special call meeting and the time?
Oh, hold on, let's set the date. That does not work for you?
That's okay, because I'm gonna be out of town till Labor Day, which is fine.
But I mean, September sixth, well,
September sixth is good.
Staff out of town.
The meeting is the 17th.
no, I was saying, I'm suggesting a special meeting
Oh, right.
first week of September,
Yeah.
so that Mr. Kadir can be here, but
But I think we need to
Yeah.
make the decision. before that.
does that work for you? 20th? Okay, August 20th.
4:30, same
4:30,
usual time.
Probably.
At Lexington Road, though.
You said Lexington?
Okay. The next item of business looks like we've already covered it, but I'll read it anyway. It's discussion about using another advanced voting location instead of the elections office. Anything additional
I did have a question.
on the first agenda item or the next?
I'm sorry, this was about the changing of events, the location of Linden House.
No, I think she's. Yes.
I guess that would need to be in your vote next week as well.
I wanted to see if we could, maybe we can tease them apart, and like the whole thing, I absolutely agree, we need to spend more time on the entire advanced voting thing. But to whatever extent we can discuss the Linden House part of it, if
Yes,
it might be worth thinking, talking about that.
main
Like
location.
the Dropbox thing, and then talking about, just I wanted to be sure if that's okay, discussing that for a moment. If you wouldn't mind helping, I think I understand, but help me understand better the reason why not to keep it at our polling location, size, at the main office, size and parking, the usual concerns about it. Given it's a general election, we want to have the biggest space possible. Have I got that right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
And then so from what you've been able to find out, Linden House is ready to match our
yes.
schedule, and then would we have to, sorry, I have several questions, it turns out. I know that when it's our main office, we have to, isn't it true that we have to have when our main office is a polling place, it must be open for voters the hours that it's open for regular business? That's why 8 a.m. is the time. Would that be the case if we were to move it at Linden House? I want it to be early, but I wanted to be sure, are we still required to keep it 8 a.m.?
I think the law says no later than.
Although no later than 9.
I know that it's usually 9 for the other non-main office locations. It's 8 for our office because of it being the main office. I'm curious to know.
Regular business hours, but no later than 9.
And so Linden House is ready for 8 a.m. Are they ready to honor that?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, that's really good to hear. And then, so yeah, as we were discussing the drop boxes, so we have some video surveillance equipment at Linden House. We're not sure whether it is sufficient for what the law requires if we were to move the drop box over there.
Right, but if we move it, we will have our own video and surveillance installed.
Okay.
Because that hard drive belongs to us.
Right.
And it goes into a retention period.
Okay.
So yes, it will be separate from.
What they already have.
Does code require that, do we have to move the drop box from the polling place, from the office right now to Linden House?
Yes, so
Okay.
if it stays in the office, the drop box has to be closed.
Got it. It can only be available at a polling place. I see.
Advanced
That's good to know.
voting
Okay,
location.
so if we were to move to Linden House for all these very good reasons, we must move the drop box over there or close the one in front of the office.
Yes.
I see.
Inside the office.
I see.
Word.
I see. That's a strong word. Okay. And, okay. All right, it's good to know.
Okay.
Do we want to, I mean, never mind. We can wait and just do the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean. What do you want to do?
No,
I think that moving is a far easier job than determining if we want to do something about the time.
Yes.
So we can, if we could do that today because it's easier.
It is easier, yes,
And
necessary.
it just.
It doesn't hurt anything.
So I, for one, see the wisdom now in moving it to the Linden House. That's just me. I mean, this is my first presidential election that I've been on the board, so It might be what happened last time.
Yeah, we left it together that, since we almost in agreement now,
What,
it'll be easier to do it, Tuesday. maybe.
Okay, yep.
I feel like, we're all on the same page
I
anyway.
just want to stop and be sure if we uncovered something big, that might give y'all a week to
I don't see.
My-
get into it.
My other question was, so downtown will be staffed and we'll have signage. It's gonna be a revolving door of people coming, wanting to vote. Sounds like
Maybe,
you have a
but
plan.
we hope we can catch them before they get there. We're
Sure.
gonna be very strategic in where we're placing our signs.
Um,
But I want to, when you're talking about the extended hours, I do know for sure one of the dates that we could not do extended hours at Linden House is on the 15th, which was the first day.
I think it's the 15th, but there is one day where they have an evening event and they've asked us not to be there past 5.
I think setting it will give us time to think about more questions.
Yeah. Final item under new business is discussion about policies surrounding online voter registration cancellation requests. So I put that agenda item forward. My concern, or rather question, was, that's been in the media and folks have been talking about this. It's a well-known thing. I just would like to know what additional, or what is the workflow after you receive something from the portal, you being our office? And then how is the board involved in that workflow?
As far as the voter cancellations.
Yes, the one, it's the online portal. So the only way we can accept a cancellation from somebody, we have to have a signature on file for that voter. So when you register to vote, you sign your voter registration form. And we found that while we were going through the petition, that we have some voters who don't have signatures on file. And we were not able to verify their signature. It could be that they didn't sign the form and, by law, you go ahead and you put it in the system and you assign them to a precinct. Contact the voter, of course, so you can get a signature on file, but not always do a voter respond to our cars, our mail. But, so there has to be a signature on file. The signature has to match. And there are some other criterias that have to match, key components like
They have to put their driver's license or their social. And so if they use their social, then it takes them to another oath question, verifying and saying, okay, you saying that this is your social. So they have extra steps and parameters.
And that's
in place.
what's in this
In
portal.
that portal, yes.
So my question is, once they've gone through every step, it's now on your desk
yes.
to go in and manually remove them. What is the workflow process?
What it does, it comes through our work to be processed, any online voter registration, it comes in all that in that mail. And I received the form and it has that signature. And then what they have is a cite and compare screen where the cancellation form is present there. And also that voter's information is present there with their signature so that you can verify and see if that voter, is that.
And then we remove the voter from the list.
Right.
It's not something that we present as this vote, we have this cancellation, and then you guys would vote to say, yes, you remove it. It processes the same way as we do cancellations now. It's just now there is a portal that allows voters to do that instead of sending us an email and giving us a signature. Because usually we get an email, we send them back, say we need to get something in writing, get your signature to make sure it's you. Now there's a portal that's provided.
And it's similar to, like you say, to my voters page, where when you're registering a voter and you're asking these questions, I am a citizen of the United States, 18 years old. It basically goes through a couple of questions there too, that you have to, then it will populate this cancellation request that you have to fill out. Like I said, if you don't have your driver's license number, then you go into the Social Security and their questions. So you got steps in place before you.
So I guess
Terry.
thank you for explaining that. This is a question to the fellow board members. We are the superintendent of elections and registration. And it's my hope that if one of those were to come through, that it would be presented to us for final approval. Because that's our job. And I feel that's an important part, especially because every week we sign, or every month we sign the deceased and felon removal. I don't see that as any different.
Well, there are ones that are on there that voters have canceled because they don't want their name on the list anymore. So those are listed on there. So do you want those as well? Because
I think
It was
anyone
submitted-
being removed should be signed off by the board. Or anyone that is requested.
so would you like on that list for us to list submitted by portal? Maybe, and then their name?
On the category here where it says cancel reason.
Because that's how when they come through the cancellations, they are either, people who are requesting or people who are moving out of state or deceased.
Yeah.
So those are base categories that we receive
My
for
concern,
cancellations.
is I want to do my due diligence in serving on this board and registration part of this.
So we'll have another category then on that report and have the documents available if you want to review them.
Everybody good with that?
Charlotte, is there any timeliness component to if I request via portal to be removed? Like, does our processing locally somehow prohibit me from registering a new place where I've moved or another state? Like, is there any critical path or is it just more of a housekeeping measure?
It's more housekeeping.
Okay, thank you.
And unfortunately, if I may speak about signatures, like when we were working on the petitions, our younger generation, a lot of them don't have a signature because they don't know cursive writing. And so on the petition list for their signature, they printed their name. But when we verified it in Jarvis in our system, it was printed. That's how it was everywhere we found it in our system. So it verified them, but they don't actually know a signature. They have their name written. And it's sad because it makes me think when you're signing a check or you're printing your name. I received a UACAVA application today. And the young man printed his name for his signature. I cannot not process his app because we don't verify signatures on applications anymore. But that's gonna be saying more and more on voter registration forms, absentee applications, because like I said, our young generation they don't write in cursive and some of them cannot read it.
They come it out of the school system. It's not their fault.
Right.
But I understand that they are about to put it back into, I don't know whether it's not a statewide, but I understand in some systems they're going back to cursive writing.
Yeah, I remember in 2020, we verified some signatures. Go ahead.
So I share the concern generally about the registration part of it being our responsibility. But I'm not so sure about what's happened before, whatever we've been receiving in the notice of, and we signed the felony removals, all that kind of stuff. But what does give me concern is this new way of someone to cancel the registration. I've gone on the website here and tried to do it and I've stopped before I submit the oath thing. Where does it, what I'm curious about is how does the signature happen? How do I sign the screen? Is it like when I'm signing for a home mortgage and there's the, what's it called, DocuSign?
No.
Or is it, how do I get a signature to you on the electronic portal that you can match? Have we had one to come through yet? You've had a chance to see?
Not had one to come through yet, and that baffles me as well.
What I'm concerned about then is, what I'm hearing is if someone just has to know, is it the last four of your social or the full social?
Last four.
Last four. Is it the whole driver's license number?
It's the whole.
Okay,
driver's
so
license.
anytime Target or some other online vendor loses the identity and it's identity theft happens, if somebody gets a hold of that, can't they now cancel my registration if they don't have a signature requirement? It's not our fault at all. That's what I'm worried about. And I hear signature requirements, but I'm afraid, maybe there's a simple explanation, but I'm afraid that online I can now look like Adam Shirley and not be Adam Shirley and cancel my registration and not know till I show up on election day, and then I can't vote.
The question that Mr. Saunders brought up, there is a letter that goes to the address that we have on file to say, we received your cancellation. You know, do you need to re-register to vote? I can't remember how the letter goes, but it's got something like that. Is this correct? And then to contact the office if it's not.
Okay.
So there is a follow-up.
Right.
So I can imagine it's probably 30 days, I can imagine.
Is it a follow-up that's done by our office?
Our office. A letter is prompted, I believe, through the Secretary of State system.
Because once they cancel,
This is-
they,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
because once they request that cancellation and it's processed, it generates a letter.
Yes.
And so if it's, you know, to the family of, if it's the person's deceased, if the person's moved out of, you know, the state or
So
moved out, then it says that, you know, that we're confirming that, you know, you have requested for your records to be removed. And if so, you know, like you say, if it's not so, call the office. If it is, you know, if it's dead, we consent, you know, we send your condolences, you know, so basically, like you say, they can confirm and, you know, deny that, whatever.
Any action of cancellation, there is a letter prompted through the system.
So I guess then to wrap up my concern, I would disagree with going forward at being, we have notification or approval of all of the removals, but at least the online portal. I would be curious to know at least if we start receiving some of those, more details on how that looks. I don't know about wanting to have approval of them, but.
Now, some of them are gonna already be listed on that activity report because the deceased will be listed.
Okay.
So the only ones that we would have to provide information for would be the moved and the, the voter requested.
I don't know that we can stop it at the local level. It just worries me. Maybe nothing will come of it, but just that part about the signature, not how do I sign on the screen? So anyway, that's my concern.
And we take that seriously. I mean, and Pam will tell you that, I want to know, why do we remove this person? I see they're deceased, but what paperwork do you have to show that? Take that seriously, taking somebody's name off the voter list.
Right.
Are we Googling obituaries and?
We go through our local obituaries. We receive notification from Vital Records. We also get a list, well, I don't know if we still do it, but we used to, a list of any voter who's been convicted of, well, any person, the convicted felon from the corrections, state corrections, and remove their name from the voter list. Again, a voter has requested to have their name removed. We have family members who call and say that they've lost a loved one. Of course, there's a letter, it's prompted. That way, just not anybody's calling and say, oh yeah, my aunt died, you know. So we send a letter and it's addressed to the family of. Just to verify.
Great, thank you. If I get a letter, I'm calling.
I know, right?
You got here from me. Any other board members have a comment on that agenda item? Okay, moving on. Final bit of the agenda, our announcements. Mr. Shirley, would you read our announcements?
Yeah, I do.
And before you do that, maybe we'll make sure we include the ones that Sandra mentioned earlier. You mentioned a few key dates.
I believe I have them, but please correct me.
Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Ma'am?
I was going to say, will I have an opportunity to make a comment before we adjourn?
Yeah.
Or actually, go ahead.
We're going to do announcements. And
Okay,
then you.
that's one of me.
I have on the agenda August the 19th as the first day to request an absentee ballot for the November election. Tuesday, August the 20th, 4:30 p.m. at 2555 Lexington Road will be a special called meeting. Tuesday, September the 17th, right here, 120 West Doherty Street at 4:30 p.m. No, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's what I forgot to change.
Yes.
Tuesday, September the 17th at 2555 Lexington Road at 4:30 p.m. will be our September regular meeting. Monday, October the 7th is the last day to register to vote or update your registration in time to be able to vote in the November election. It is also the first day absentee ballots will be mailed out for the November general election.
Yes, correct.
Your cover week will kick off September 17th. So all your cover voters will get their ballots sent to them by the Secretary of State starting September the 17th. But other what I say, non-UOCAVA voters, their ballots will be put in the mail starting October 7th.
And UOCAVA are uniformed and overseas voters. Yeah, shout out to our military.
Here.
Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, thank our attorney for that was a lot of time put in for we did. Because I know putting together a letter like that takes, it's almost like you're working full-time just for the Board of Election.
Let's keep us.
Often get that.
Thank you.
For other things. And I also want to take a minute to just acknowledge everyone who has come in. It's really wonderful to see good participation. I wish you all would be a little more like Miss Elsner and come in when there are not necessarily things that are troubling you. Tell us other things we might be working on. So it's always great to see you. I'll respond to a couple of quick items. Ms. Roden talked about, we didn't have a precedent, we did address that, but hopefully I think now you know why we went on this route. We were concerned about frivolous. Now, how we define frivolous challenges, that remains to be seen. But I think the one thing that I wanted to point out was we were not going to try and stop anyone from having a legitimate challenge. And once again, it's yet to be determined how we look at frivolous, how we look at legitimate, and maybe time will tell us. But I don't think anyone has to be concerned about just stopping a challenge just because we don't feel like we want to address that issue. And hopefully you all are leaving with that particular thing. Mr. D'Amato, thank you. I always like to thank people who have served. It's an honor to have you here. And I have you know that I was the president of Cedar Creek, which had 667 homes, and it was a nightmare. And I hope it wasn't the case for your smaller subdivision.
I've got a good group of people. I stayed on so long.
I just wanted to mention, you mentioned something about poll workers, seeing people when you went to vote and there aren't enough people, there don't have enough business. Poll workers are not necessarily staff. So just because we have poll workers there it does not necessarily mean they can come and do the full-time staff work. So I just wanted to mention that.
I understand. My only concern when you were talking about it was simply, look at these two houses, which I assume came from voter polls.
I understand. I understand. Something like that comes up, we'll definitely look up. And I also wanted to mention to Mr. Hayes and somebody else also mentioned, a lot of these hours and how many days you have to be kept open are mandated by the state. So I think my colleagues will tell you there are many days many polling stations shouldn't be open for that long, but some are just absolutely mandated and we just don't have a choice. We have to keep them open regardless how many people show up. So that's something we're working on. And something for Mr. McClendon I had mentioned, I believe he had talked about how you weren't sure how we accept registration from illegal aliens. I don't know how to answer that because, and the staff can correct me on this, after they register, it goes to the state for a verification process. So, and something I spoke briefly with Ms. Roden earlier last month, that if that is your concern, that after we have looked at the driver's license and entered the data, and the state is doing something wrong, please reach out to our 3 state representatives. I mean, if there is a problem, you have an issue with the process, I think our state legislature would be a great place to work with. Because we cannot just go by whims and innuendos and things we hear. You know how it is nowadays. You hear something on the internet, you think it's true. So we have to have some data where we go with it. So once again, I just wanted to address everyone, whatever few things I picked up. That's it for me. Thanks for coming, everyone.
All right. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Floor is open for a motion.
I so move.
Motion, Ms. Fambro, do we have a second? Second, Ms. Till. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned 6:05.